Hey everybody, welcome to the Shrimp City Report. My name is Devin. I'm joined with my co-host.
Hey, it's DJ. How's it going?
And also we have another special co-host tonight. Her name is...
Madeline.
Okay, Madeline. Madeline, what's your last name?
Dukes.
Okay.
Good to know.
And so we have our special guest tonight, Tate Nation, one of the famous local Charleston artists. And tonight we're going to face the nation.
Yes.
Ba-dum-bum.
Okay. Well, Tate, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well.
Good.
Real well. How are y'all?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, good.
You dressed up.
Yeah. I couldn't get my tux out of the dry cleaners. So.
Oh, okay.
I heard on the sports talk radio yesterday, Bobby Harton, who's a beloved local person.
Yeah.
For some reason, they were talking about what tuxedos were, and he was like trying to explain. He's like, "Well, it's where they got the felt on the lapel," and then the other guy that was on there was like, "Oh, wait, I read it. I thought it was lapel." He's like, "Lapel." So of course that was nothing about sports. But anyway, let's get back to Tate. Tate, where are you from?
Originally from Kentucky. I was born in Kentucky, lived there till I was about 11 or 12 I think. And then my dad was with GE. We got transferred to upstate New York during my high school years. Okay. So I lived in outside of Syracuse and actually in a little village called Liverpool. I'm a graduate of Liverpool High School, which I thought was so cool.
Wow.
Because this was back in the late 60s, early 70s, and Beatles era, and I'm still proud to this day to say I'm a Liverpool High School graduate.
You're a Pudlian or a Pudlian.
Liverpudlian,
Yes. Yeah.
That's what they say, Liverpudlian.
Pudlian sounds better. It sounds like pudding.
Okay, you can say that. You say pud, I'll say pud.
Okay.
All right, so growing up in Kentucky, I mean, was it like a cosmopolitan area that would foment being an artist, or what was it like? And that was the 60s, 70s?
This was 60s, yeah.
Okay.
It was 1966 when we moved from Kentucky to upstate New York. So, yeah, it was late 50s, early 60s I lived there. And as far as art goes, I mean, didn't have any formal training or anything like that. I had a friend named Scott who I was always envious because his parents got him private art lessons. He got to draw. I wonder if he ended up being an artist. I have no idea. But I always thought that was really cool that he got to do art lessons. I think at home. I think the instructor came to his house. But I didn't have any. I just kind of. We learned from John Nagy books. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
You had how to draw the sphere and the cone and do all the shading and everything. So I have a brother, John. I'm one of 5 kids. I have a brother, John, who also is an artist, but his career ended up being a professional photographer. But John and I just devoured the John Nagy books and tried those and the ones that had how to draw a giraffe and different animals, starting with the shapes. And we just kind of, I guess more than anything, we're self-taught. How about you?
I started drawing, I think I was told when I was 2 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't it was pornography. It was pornographic.
Have you sold some of that?
No.
Put it in your Spoleto tent.
No, I got in trouble in the first grade because I drew a naked lady and showed my student friends, and the teacher found it, and then I got in trouble at home.
Well, how about you, young DJ? How'd you get into the art game? Were you a kid like them?
I drew whatever I saw on TV. I was a TV kid in the 90s, so drawing Power Rangers or Transformers or whatever thing that looked like you could blow up a city, I was like, man, that's cool. I'm going to try drawing that.
Kind of along those same lines, what I did a lot as a kid was traced Fred Flintstone, Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned to draw a lot by tracing, and for the longest time I did all that, and then it wasn't long before I could draw Fred Flintstone in my sleep. I was probably in second grade or something like that.
Well, you're training your eye and your brain together in your hand, that coordination.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first thing you want to do is, start an interest in the actual hobby. So you kind of want to draw what you feel like drawing to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
If you just start from the basics, sometimes it can get a little tedious. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
my brothers used to draw tanks and rockets all the time.
Uh-huh. Every kid draws dinosaurs and things like that.
Army men, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, you went to upstate New York.
Yeah.
Did you graduate from Liverpool? You graduated from high school in Kentucky, right?
No. I
Liverpool
moved,
was New
moved
York.
to Liverpool when I was going into 8th grade.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and so I did all my high school years in Liverpool, and graduated from there. And not that this has anything to do with the art, but has a whole lot to do with my high school. I was a swimmer. I
was about to ask if you did sports.
Yeah, I swam on the swim team. I swam in college too. As a result, I swam at Western Kentucky. I came back to Kentucky for college. Went to Western Kentucky University.
Yeah, Hilltoppers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And swam there, and so swimming had a whole lot to do with my growing up.
How many years did you compete in swimming?
All together? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh! I mean, I probably started when I was grade school, 6th grade. I mean, first 6 years old. On like summer leagues, swam for a little team at the pool that we swam at.
Right.
Did that, and then got really serious about it in high school. I actually got pulled out of a gym class by the coach. He says, "Hey, I want you to show up for practice. We're gonna, because they had everyone go and swim laps just to determine whether you could survive."
Yeah.
and Coach Funicello, big influence in my life. He pulled me out of a gym class and said, "I want you to try out for the swim team," and that was the beginning of it. So and then even after college, I swam masters for a good number of years. I still. I don't compete anymore, but I still swim regularly and can't wait for our pool to open.
Upstate New York, 60s. Any of the hippies, Summer of Love, Woodstock. Woodstock's up.
I knew people who went to Woodstock, some of my neighbors and friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. So did you go there, or did you have any other kind of diversion when you were in college into some other career or ambition?
All of my diversion was swim team. I mean,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
in fact, I was in the pool before school in the morning and after school. We'd have morning practice before the opening bell rang. So I'd be at school at 6:00 in the morning. We'd have a practice for an hour. Then after school, we'd have a 2-hour or 2.5-hour practice. So I was 100% swimming. In fact, this was up. There's skiing. Snow skiing goes on up there because this is in the snow belt. I've only skied once in my life, and it wasn't even there because our coach forbid it, because one weekend some of the swim team guys went skiing and 2 of them came back with broken bones, and he sat us down. He says, "Okay, here's the deal. You choose skiing or swimming, but not both." And it wasn't important enough to me to get into skiing, so I was all about the swimming. So
Right on.
Yeah. So being about swimming, were you always kind of drawn towards the ocean then?
Oh yeah.
Or coastal life?
Oh yeah. I in fact, these days, now that I've lived in Charleston for going on 50 years now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine living somewhere where there wasn't water, and especially ocean. I mean,
Yeah.
and the clearer the water in the ocean, the more I'm drawn to it.
Yeah.
I love the Caribbean or the Bahamas. Get me
absolutely.
close to clear water, and I'm in heaven.
Do you scuba dive or snorkel?
I snorkel all the time. I've never tried scuba. I've never been certified, but I've done some phenomenal snorkeling. I mean, I've seen all kinds of things snorkeling, and I have friends who have a house in the Bahamas, and I've been there a good number of times. And that's all I do when I'm there. I snorkel every day.
Yeah, it must be inspiring. I mean, we can segue into the art. So you're swimming, you're going to school, you're being a responsible human being.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
You're assuming too much.
When did you start making that transition into maybe I can do this? Was it a long burn?
Yeah, I mean, I've always drawn, painted. I have some paintings at home that I did back when I was 13, 14 years old, and a couple of them. And they're when I've done talks at schools before, I was just telling someone last night, when I've done talks at schools, I have two that sometimes I'll take along. And one of them is a vase of roses, or a single rose, a vase with a single rose in it. And another is our dog that I had growing up, Penny. And I have to look real long and hard to figure out which one is which. One of these is a rose.
Yeah.
They're almost that bad. No, but I always drew, painted. Actually started out painting originally in oils. Maybe acrylics weren't popular back then in the 50s and 60s. And
because they were safe.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't have uranium paint.
But no, so I always drew, always painted. Started off college. I don't know if I'm going to jump around here a little bit, but you can reel me in anytime you want. I started off college as a business major. Did that for the first 2.5 years. I've always liked business, and it makes me kind of a weird artist because so many of my artist friends don't like the business end of it. I love the business end of it. I love doing business. Of course, that means that I get to talk to the clients, talk to the people that like my art. It's a big part of it to me. Kind of the painting is, one way to look at it is almost a necessity to be able to do art shows and exhibits and all. So I mean, because I really love connecting with people at shows.
Yeah, I guess you're an independent contractor, right? I mean, that's kind of pretty much what it is.
Yeah. So, again, I'm bouncing around, so reel me in, stop me anytime, because I'm not sure which direction I'm going to go with this. But I after my junior year, I set out. My grades were not exactly what you would call stellar in business, and so I set out thinking that I was going to set out for a semester or two, but during that time I ended up joining the Navy. They sent me to Charleston.
What?
Yeah, they had a 2-year program at the time, and I thought, that sounds like a pretty good. I'm not going to do 6 right now or anything like that, but 2-year program sounds pretty good. And my brother John had a college deferment because it was Vietnam War time. He had a college deferment to finish college, and so then he had an obligation to go into the Navy active duty right after he graduated. So he went in to Navy photography school, and he's been a professional photographer ever since.
That is so cool.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Pensacola, Florida, yeah.
They have videographers and all that.
Well, it even got better. His story is as good as mine. He so while he was in Pensacola, training, learning his trade for photography, he was a swimmer too. He swam at University of Louisville. I swam at Western Kentucky. So he found a pool where he could work out, and it just happened to be the pool where the Navy Blue Angels kids had a swim team.
Yeah.
They lost their coach while John was swimming there, and someone came up and said, "You obviously know what you're doing. Would you like to be our coach?" So his time in the Navy was spent being a swim coach in Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, that's nice.
and he learned the trade of photography. He's been a professional photographer ever since. So we're close in age, and we talk all the time. Talked to him today earlier. So his time was doing that. But anyway, I was sent to Charleston. Knew nothing about Charleston. I actually, for some reason, I thought they were sending me to West Virginia. Like there's a ship. There's a ship in West Virginia. So I lived on a ship, the USS Blakely. Lived on a ship for 2 years. I was a quartermaster, which in the Navy is navigation. It's different from the other branches have quartermasters, which are supply. So I was involved in navigation. Got to travel a good bit in the short 2 years that I was in there, I got to do a bunch in the Caribbean, and that inspired my art a lot too. I remember specifically I think it was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, going out one night and just seeing some awesome art. It was so colorful and kind of primitive a lot. So my style is, I'm not going to call it primitive, but it's certainly not literal.
It's inspired.
Yeah.
It's loose and carefree, and it's fun.
Thank you.
When I look at your work, I'm just like, I hope that person is happy because he painted that and it makes me happy. He has to be a happy person. And your color palette it's very Caribbean. You have those aqua blues and pinks and soft yellows, and they're just beautiful.
Comes to me naturally. I mean, because that's what I'm drawn to, and so I couldn't paint with a different palette. Probably it just wouldn't be me. But so I don't know how much I've hopped around here, but anyway, so I finished.
Yeah, we're talking about the Navy.
Finished in the Navy. Yeah, I got my time in the Navy was done, and I went right back to school. Went back and finished up at Western Kentucky. Changed my major to art.
Oh, right.
Studio art with the emphasis in illustration, and so I did. Started doing that. I moved back to Charleston. I'm sorry, jumping around. I moved back to Charleston the week after graduation. I had made a lot of friends here. Even had a girlfriend here, and so that brought me back to Charleston, and been here ever since. The girlfriend that brought me back is now married to one of my best friends, and I married the girl next door.
Yeah. So have you been living in North Charleston all your life, or what parts of Charleston have you seen?
No, when I came back right after graduation, I lived in Mount Pleasant, in the old village of Mount Pleasant. Lived in several different places in Mount Pleasant for over 30 years. I've been in North Charleston in Park Circle for almost 14 years right now. I came up here in 2010.
Do you think that your art style has evolved ever since you've been in Charleston?
Well, that's a good question. Interestingly, I worked. I'm going to take it one step back farther. Even right after college, I went to. As soon as I came to Charleston, I was walking down King Street, stopped in Hughley's. I don't know if you remember remember Hughley's. It was an office supply store or something, but they had an art supply department in there.
Oh, cool. And
I ran into a guy in the art supply store who worked for a screen printing company, and I said, "Hey, we got to talking," and I said, "Oh, I've done some screen printing in school. I did some I coached summer swim teams during college. Knew enough about screen printing to make our own T-shirts." Pretty bad, but we made them nonetheless. And so I was interested enough in screen printing. I said, "Hey, can I come back and see the shop where you work?" And I went back there, and when I left, I had a job.
Oh, cool.
So I worked in the art department at this screen printing company for it's either 3 years or 5 years. Now I've lost track of it. But anyway. Worked there for a while and then left and started. We took 2 people with me, and we started our own screen printing company, which I stayed with for 5 years. And then I sold out to my partners and took off just doing freelance illustration, because I was doing illustration on the side for some of our clients anyway. And I really liked that, and was I was doing less and less art and more managing and supervising of other artists that as the company grew. So I sold to my partners and went off doing just totally freelance illustration.
Okay.
Did that for about 15, 18 years, something like that. Still occasionally do a little illustration work. But your question, came full circle here. Your question was, has my art evolved? During the illustration years, this is why I kind of segued into that. During the illustration years, I kind of viewed myself as a sort of a chameleon. I mean, if someone said, "Hey, can you do a piece that's woodcut for this magazine article or something?" Sure, and I would do that. And the next one might be, "We want this to be a kind of a cartoon piece." I was like, "Yeah, I could do that too." during those years, I got to do all kinds of styles, all kinds of mediums, and over time, I just sort of blended, mixed, and matched my favorite elements. I mean, I have some pieces that were done back 20 years ago or something. That's you can see where I was going with it. Not exactly where I ended up right now, but you can see the direction that it was going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, while I can, if I want, I can draw and paint very representational. But if you know my style, it's not that at all right now. It's kind of stylized and offbeat, and you were saying, Madeline, a minute ago, you were saying fun and all. I had someone just last week. Someone was trying to describe it, and they said the word that comes to mind is joyful. Your work is
It
joyful.
is joyful.
It
I
is.
thought that's a nice compliment. You know?
But it sounds like you definitely jumped around to multiple mediums and worked with a lot of different
Very much
stuff. Yeah.
Very much, and it was working with so many different kinds of clients too. I mean, some of them were publishers, some of them were ad agencies. You know, I did a number of kids' books.
Yeah,
and,
you did the books.
Yeah, I've done,
that's right.
16 or 17 books, and did a lot of magazine covers and CD covers and textbook work. A lot of publishers I worked with, so and some corporate stuff and ad agencies.
So you're definitely diversified. Getting back to your evolving question, DJ, and I guess this could be for any kind of arts, music, writing, or whatever. Is there an obligation to grow, or is it okay to settle in and this is the way I do things? There's no obligation for me to do it any other way. What do you think, Tate? And I'm going to put it around the table.
Oh, I love that you asked that. Because that's something that comes up a lot. I mean, I've talked to some people who think that it's not a good thing necessarily, that I haven't continued to change. But there's slight change in different things. And every once in a while, I'll do a painting that maybe is a little more representational than my typical offbeat style. But I don't think it's a bad thing. If I've got something I love to do, I do it well. It's well received. People appreciate it. Why change gears?
Yeah. What do you
Why
think,
reinvent
Dee?
the wheel?
I mean, when I think about art, I think of it being comforting, not just for the viewer, but for the artist. So if you're comfortable, working in a certain style, you should stick to that style. You don't have to force yourself to. I mean, you can try something new, but if you're not feeling it, then why should you have to keep painting in that method?
I like that.
Or change it for whatever.
Yeah.
Madeline?
I'm totally different than these two guys here. Because the way I'm wired, I get bored very easily. So I like to add things to my repertoire as I go along. So, for example, I used to paint when I first came to Charleston, and before I came to Charleston, I did a lot of kind of contemporary impressionism, and I just kept seeing it everywhere, and beautiful work, but I as an artist was like, I can't look at it anymore. So I wanted to push myself and started doing more abstract work, and that might evolve into something else, but I don't know. My emphasis is on color, so color drives me a lot, color and shape. And I don't know. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think you got to do it this way, or you have to do it this way, or you don't have to do it this way. It just depends on the person.
It really is. I mean, some great philosophers have basically said that there's no instructions on how to rock. You just basically do it or whatever. Or if you get into a groove, I think every kind of creative entity has possibly had someone say, what else can we get out of you? Can you do something else? So I was just curious to see what y'all thought.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists get worried about not finding their voice, so to speak. And I used to do it. I used to like kind of it's a little anxiety inducing. And so eventually I think I found it.
Yeah.
And it just depends on the person.
That's a good place to be. I mean, you know.
And to your point too, I think that there's something to be said about trying something new. I feel like
Right.
at least 80% of artists are EDT, so you always have
Sign
to
me
be
up.
Yeah.
trying something new, just for even if you're just playing around or having fun with it, so yeah.
Yeah, I think even if you're painting the same style or whatever, you need to push yourself and challenge yourself to even make it even better in some way, or I don't know, you just need to be pushing yourself.
Along
Yeah.
those lines, I mean, I feel like I'm always sort of
Right.
being experimental with new pieces, even though the end result may look similar to what I've been doing for a number of years. I don't just get in a rut and just do the same thing, cookie cutter, over and over
Yeah,
and over.
I know you don't. I've seen how different pieces
Yeah.
that you've done, but I've seen some people where they do the same thing all the time, and I just like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it would be boring, but to them, they probably love what they do. So,
Yeah, I guess if it comes real natural to them, then, and a certain amount of my work and my style does come naturally to me. I mean, I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I like the end result. I like the process. So, whatever comes out of that.
what's the best part of the process?
What's the best part? Not starting. Starting is the toughest part.
It is, isn't it? You're
It
just like,
is.
"Ugh."
I have a piece going right now. It's a commission piece that it just took me the longest time to really get some momentum going on it. And now I can't stop. I mean,
Oh, that's
I'll get up
good.
in the morning. Get a cup of coffee, and before I do anything else, suddenly I'm working on that piece, even though that wasn't my original plan.
Right.
And I've jokingly said there have been times when I'll get started on a piece in the morning and don't watch the clock or anything like that, and the next thing you know, I'm 3 cups of coffee into it, and I look at my painting and I'm making some satisfactory work on it, and I look at the clock and here it is. It might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm still in my boxer shorts and a t-shirt because I never made it past the coffee maker because I'm
Right.
painting, and
You're in the zone, man.
got into it.
Yeah, for any of the projects that y'all do, I mean, is there ever disappointment at the end of it, or relief? What do you see, or just satisfaction? Which of those three maybe is a percentage, or is there ever some time that you or anyone else at the table is like, I am so glad to have that painting done or that project done?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. My pieces I spend a long time on my pieces. I mean, weeks, sometimes months on a piece. So I'll typically have more than one going at a time and shift back and forth a little bit. I don't know if you work that way too?
I usually work in a series and go from one piece. I'll have maybe 6 canvases out or 4 or anywhere from 2 to 6. And I go from one to the other while I'm painting.
I have about 3 going right now at different stages. One is very early on, one's nearly complete, and one is probably 60 or 80% complete. And I have to do that, or else I would go stir crazy just looking at the same piece over and over because I do spend so long on it.
I know we talked about the beginning of the process, but for me, one of the most stressful parts of the process is the end, where it's just nitpick a clock, where you keep seeing small details and stuff like that. At least that's how I work.
Well,
Yeah.
somebody told me one of the best things, and you probably have suggestions too, Tate. One of the best things to do is turn your painting to the wall for a couple of days and then come back and look at it. And that's when you see what needs to be pushed or, silenced or whatever. Your eye is better at critiquing it.
That's exactly the way I like to work. I put it away. I'll set it aside, come back maybe days later, maybe weeks later with fresh eyes and just go, oh, okay, it's farther along than I thought, or I see now what I need to change, Yeah, it's
Well, so I guess we're in Charleston. If for everybody that doesn't realize what Shrimp City is, so big event coming up in Charleston, the most iconic event, I guess, for arts. Tate, were you here when they did the first Spoleto in the mid-70s?
I think so.
Okay.
I think yes. I mean, I came back after college. I came back. Well, I was here in the Navy for a few years.
Yep.
That would have been in the mid '70s. I came back in '79 after finishing school. So I do remember, if not the very first one of the very first ones. Yeah.
When did you start getting involved with it? You were in Piccolo Spoleto this year, right?
Oh yeah, I've done it for 24 years now.
Okay.
This will be my
Alright.
20. This will be my 24th year. Yeah. When I really first got involved in it is I was doing, as I mentioned a little while ago, I was doing strictly illustration for all those years, 15 years plus. And one year I just read about the poster contest for Piccolo Spoleto. This was in 1999. And I read about the poster contest and I thought, you know what? What the heck? I'm going to submit something. And I did a piece, submitted it, and it was chosen as the official poster for the year 2000 for Piccolo
All right.
Spoleto.
Wow.
And so at that point, I decided, okay, maybe illustration is going to be secondary, and I'm going to, launch back into painting because it had been so many years since I had. And that's what got me started. So I've done Piccolo Spoleto every year since then. Yeah.
So Spoleto was originally Giancarlo Menotti's festival from Spoleto, Italy. He transplanted it here.
Correct.
I guess I'm kind of so I did grow up here. But it seems like Spoleto was fired out of a gate or a cannon. It just became the hugest thing in Charleston.
Instantly. Right off the bat.
It just seems like there wasn't birth pangs for Spoleto. It was just it. That was the thing. So
Big name performers.
right. So Madeline too, or anyone, how could Spoleto have the audacity and to have a Piccolo Spoleto as well, and to have an arts festival for 2 weeks that are generally kind of hot out in the middle of the park, I mean, do you think Piccolo Spoleto has been a great thing about at least involving folks that can't get the $400 opera tickets?
I think it's great. I think it's great for locals. It features a lot of regional acts and highlights the culture that is in the Low Country and around South Carolina and Georgia. I just think it helps for people who don't know their culture in South Carolina. It really features. It's big for featuring artists.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see.
I mean, there's a ton of Northerners and people from all over the country who come to visit and get to see what Charleston lifestyle and culture is
Yeah,
like.
they go to anyway.
International visitors sometimes even.
Yeah.
Not so much since COVID. Maybe that hasn't bounced back to that. But before that, it would not be unusual at all to have people come into my display or Madeline's display who were came from Europe for Spoleto.
Yeah. So we talked about evolution a little bit more. You've been with Spoleto 20-something years. Have you seen the Charleston art style evolve? And what's your opinion or take on how it's evolved?
I would have to say yes, it's evolved a good bit. I do remember in my early years in Charleston, there were really only 2 or 3 art galleries
Yeah.
in downtown Charleston. And I don't know if any of those are still around. They've probably come and gone. Now Madeline, what do you hear? It seems like 50 or 60 galleries at least in downtown Charleston.
Yeah, I think like maybe in the early 2000s or late 90s, I remember Tidwell Art Gallery. Bay Street, was that the Bay Street Gallery?
I don't know.
The one that had Susan Colwell and all those women in it.
I'm not sure.
And then Wolf Gallery
Yeah.
that started a lot of the art walks.
Were you in the Wolf Gallery?
No.
I was. I didn't know if you were.
No, I had a friend in it though.
Oh, okay.
Dorothy Shoemaker. But anyway, there were probably like 3 galleries that started that whole. The Wolf Gallery in particular started a lot of the art walk stuff. And then other tiny galleries started popping up, and then it just was like boom.
And more artists also have found their way to Charleston.
Yeah.
And some of that has to do with Savannah College of Art and Design, I think, maybe. College of Charleston has a fine art department.
That's what I've heard.
And then, School of the Arts here in Charleston, like you went to, DJ.
Yep.
There's just more and more interest in art, apparently. And the art, you were asking about it evolving. I think a lot of the art 40 years ago or whatever was very strictly traditional art. It was, there wasn't anything that was abstract like you do, Madeline, or not even like what I do. I mean, I might have been chased out of town for doing that originally. I remember thinking when I was in Tidwell Gallery. That was the first gallery that I was ever in.
Oh, okay.
It was because of my Piccolo Spoleto poster. I was invited to be in there, and then Wolf Gallery. But I remember one of the first paintings that I did in the style that I'm doing now. I remember thinking, and it was a Charleston scene, and it's still to this day. It's a piece that does well in reproductions for me and all. But I remember thinking, okay, people might think this is a little bit sacrilegious of Charleston for me. Instead of it being traditional old downtown homes.
I was going to ask. Charleston is very. I don't want to say like traditional. Well, I would say they're heavy like into the culture and the history. Yeah. Do you think that some of that kind of averted people like making that risk for art, jumping into that new type of style in Charleston, or do you think that slowed down? I don't want to say slowed down, but made it a little bit more scarier to move into like a new form or style of art?
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think that's probably because of Charleston's history and how formal,
how thick the culture is.
I think so many people thought that if they were going to produce art, it needed to be historic art, historic looking art, or it had to look architecturally correct. And that's why I say when I first did a piece that wasn't, it was kind of taking a whole lot of liberties with Charleston architecture and all. I thought, here goes. I may get chased out of town. But it was well received. But no, before that, and still maybe to some degree, there's probably a lot of people who still think, oh, you've got to paint, basket ladies or horse and carriage tours or Rainbow Row. And while I could do that if I wanted to, that's not what I choose to do. And so, but I think a lot of artists may be a little nervous about getting out and doing something that's that different.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up in a little bit. You did mention your poster. Didn't you do a Bridge Run poster before?
I did. Well, actually, I had the Piccolo Spoleto poster a second time. I got it in 2010 as well.
Oh, okay.
And I was chosen for the Cooper River Bridge Run for the 40th anniversary. Piece of mine was chosen that appeared on like 50,000 T-shirts.
That's amazing.
And a gazillion posters and such. And with my history of running and swimming and triathlons and all too, I'm still very involved in that world, and so I've done paintings that have appeared on countless runs and triathlons and such. I mean, there's a run in the Old Village of Mount Pleasant. It's the Old Village Harbor 5K run,
right?
And it's just celebrated its 23rd year, I think, 24th year. And my art has been on the shirts, posters, and race bibs for 23, all but one of those years.
Right.
And now it's just a given. They just contact me in the middle of the year and go, okay, we need to talk about your art for this year.
Yeah, your art seems like it's also lends well to reproduction because of the fun, and it looks better on a T-shirt than a shipwreck or something. I don't know. So
The Hunley.
yeah.
Well, I have one more question for you.
Let's hear it.
Okay, what is a fun fact and probably the most interesting thing about yourself that people don't know?
I was very heavily into recreational skydiving many years ago, and I've done hundreds of jumps, and had a bad accident one time. Is this is what you're wondering about? Had a bad accident one time and broke my back in 4 places, broke my pelvis and my sternum, and spent the summer of, it was about 32 years ago, spent the summer in a body cast, basically. Needless to say, I wasn't painting while I was flat on my back recuperating.
You're like the Energizer Bunny. You get right back up and keep going.
Did you skydive anymore after that?
Interestingly, my ex and I went on a vacation right after I got out of my my body cast, and we came back pregnant. And so I decided, okay, if we're going to start a family, then maybe I should give up skydiving because they need a dad who's in one piece.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, I broke my back again a year ago. Doing something equally crazy. Audrey, the one who was who came back from vacation pregnant. So here, it's her fault. She was in town last January, a year ago, and I said, "Hey, let's go do an American Ninja Warrior obstacle course."
As you do, yeah, of course.
And with 10 minutes left to go on the course, I had another bad accident and broke my back again. But I'm back up and going at it again. So it's like,
that's good.
Do I learn? No.
And then you walked outside and stepped on a nail on your porch.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry, Tate.
That's right.
Well, that'll teach you to do races.
And walk outside.
Yeah, and walk. Well, speaking of races, I was thinking today, are y'all familiar with the song Camptown Races?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Camptown. How long is that race? What do they say in there? Camptown racetrack.
5?
5 mile long.
Okay, I was
Is it? I don't
thinking,
know.
what a long race. No horse wants to run, what is that, an 11K or something? Or
Because the 10K is 6.2 miles.
It just dawned on me today that the Camptown races, I mean, it must have taken all afternoon.
For a horse?
Think about
No, the Kentucky
song.
Derby is, what,
It's a
2
quarter.
miles?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, is it?
No, 1.25. I forget. I've been to the Derby a couple of times, but
I want to see that race.
I'll be honest. I'd never even thought of it being a horse race. I thought it was just an actual, race.
Oh, like a car race?
Yeah, or people
Right.
running.
Okay. Well, the Shrimp City Report is going to
We gotta
go
ask
find
our-
out what that's all about, and we'll come back for it later.
See,
because if it's horses, okay, the Kentucky Derby, regardless of how long it is, if it's a mile and a quarter, I think, something like that, it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you could do that.
You could do 5 miles in 10 or 12 minutes.
Yeah, it's not
15 minutes.
It's not a burro race.
Tate, what is your so people can see what you make? What is your website address?
Well, thank you for asking. www, of course, tatenation.com. TATENATION.com.
And we will have that into the podcast notes and
Cool.
all of your other social media links and whatnot. And Devin has the last question for each podcast.
Yep. So to close out, Tate, we are Shrimp City Report. So your last question of the day: what's your favorite way to eat shrimp?
Oh, I like boiled shrimp with cocktail sauce. However, I had some shrimp and grits just a few days ago.
Did you make it?
No. Restaurant made it.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking.
Yeah. How about you, Madeline? What's your favorite way to eat shrimp?
I feel like this is a Bubba Gump thing.
No, you can only pick one
It
thing.
is. We'll be sponsored in 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like fried shrimp.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the fried shrimp grit bowl at the grit counter.
Ooh, I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, it's
Looks
pretty rad.
good.
You have to tell me about it.
Y'all sponsor us.
Every time I drive by there, I'm like, I need to go in there. So what
is
is the
amazing.
fried shrimp grit bowl?
Yeah, and they also have like they I'm doing a commercial for the grit. They infuse.
Did you hear that, folks?
Yeah, they infuse their grits with different flavors. So there's like the jalapeno. There's a red rice grits that they do with tomato sauce. It's pretty amazing. And then they have all kinds of different toppings. So
Like they have a chicken and waffle grit bowl, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Chicken and waffle grits bowl? Mm-hmm. Well, guess where we need to all go?
yeah, the next podcast. Okay, Deb.
I really have been liking shrimp Alfredo lately.
Okay.
We had some good shrimp Alfredo at Paradiso recently. That was really good.
Oh yeah, that was pretty rad.
Yeah.
So here we go, plug in all these places.
Plug.
Charleston. I mean, you got to call it what it is. Charleston is known for its cuisine. Shrimp and grits. That conversation can be its own podcast on the way people like it, where it is the best. I will say every restaurant in Charleston says they have the best shrimp and grits. So,
Yeah.
Tate, what's your next event?
Well, next event is going to be Piccolo Spoleto.
Okay, cool.
That starts Memorial Day weekend, it goes for 17 days. It's at Marion Square in downtown Charleston, and that's my next big event. Between now and then, I'm working on pieces for that exhibit, and I have some commissions that are in the works right now as well. So.
Okay, cool. So in Piccolo Spoleto, everybody, that is a free event at the down at Marion Square. Some other folks we know are probably going to be there as well. Madeline Dukes and Yep. So anyway, Tate, I'm glad we really got together.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, had a chance to come by. I know it was a long trip. He lives in the neighborhood. So
I walked over.
yeah. So anyway, everybody, thanks for listening to the Shrimp City Report. We'll have another one out in about a week. See ya.